Sparky Coach Lounge Room Pod featuring Linton Chalmers, the big charm dog. How are you?
Yeah, I'm well. I'm well. Greg, good to
Now,
be here.
bit of backstory on us. We went to Bible college together
Oh, geez, mate. Really? That's the
20, 20 years
okay.
ago and lived on a diet, a very healthy diet of probably satay rice at that point and checkers.
Yeah.
Although
Well, it's
checkers.
funny, man. I'm generally I don't talk a lot about those days. They don't necessarily help my I'm not embarrassed of it, but it's not sort of the first thing in my resume I bring up. But nice to know whether we're going there. So yeah, let's
I've
do that.
just been owning it because I'm like,
Yeah.
I think in that church space, in that sort of, or any volunteer space, when you're leading for no money, like the stuff you learn is incredible. And the people you meet, and look at us, still mates so far down the track. So give us a bit of your story. Like tell us about like, what does life look like? I know I said I went backwards when we were off air talking, but what does life look like now for you? What do you do? You're in leadership consultant or something similar. So give us a pitch and give us like what a client looks like for you and all that kind of
Yeah.
realm.
Yeah. No, it's so yeah, I'm a leadership consultant. So kind of what does that mean? I know that's perhaps a little ambiguous, but you might have heard of management consultants. So you think management consultants go into usually big businesses and kind of pump out Excel spreadsheets and PowerPoint presentations, helping organizations find out where they can get process efficiency or where to cut headcount or where to open up a new product line, how to restructure that kind of stuff. So more like the hard end of business. What I work on, if I think leadership consulting, I'll work on how do you the organizations get the best out of their people, and the intent is driving high performance through helping people thrive, basically. And so it's a funny sort of space to have got into, and I'll give you a bit of the backstory there. But on a day-to-day basis, I spend a lot of time speaking. So I'll be speaking to groups of people. Sometimes it's big groups doing kind of keynote presentations and that kind of stuff. But often my work is in pretty small groups, I think 15 to 30 people. And I do kind of three kind of core things. So one, I work with leadership teams, and the purpose there, by default, leadership teams or groups of people that make strategic decisions and lead an organization aren't always aligned and pulling in the same direction. By default, often it's chaos as opposed to order. And so I'll help those teams get clear on where do they want to get to, what's their strategy, is there trust in the group, can we have open conversations, are we collaborating well, are we having the hard discussions, that kind of stuff. So that's one I do, sort of working with executive teams and leadership teams. I'll give you some examples of clients in a moment. The other ones I do leadership development, and so often that looks like people who have been promoted into their role, into being a manager or a leader. And usually people are promoted not because they're always demonstrating the skills of a leader, but because they're good at the technical stuff. So, hey, you're good at doing that job, will make you a manager of others. And so someone finds, hey, well, I was good at that, so I must now be good at being a manager. And they realize, shit, I'm actually, that's a whole new skill set, and tendency to then go back to what you know best, which is doing, as opposed to building those skills of how do you get the best out of other people, and can you get results with and through people. So I spend a lot of time coaching, training, advising those sort of people of how they can do well. And finally, I work with sales teams or commercial teams, and that's, hey, how do you win more business? How do you win more work? How do you grow revenue? How do you grow profit? How do we put structures and processes in place? How do we build the skills to have better conversations? How can overall we drive higher performance? It works with those three topics. And so on a day-to-day basis, what does that look like? Well, I don't have any niche of clients. So because of the nature of my work being people problems, regardless of what kind of organization you're in, there's always going to be people related stuff. So I work in technology companies, often, so it might be large tech companies. I can give you some examples. I work with banks, telecommunications, Vodafone, like finance, Morgan Stanley, MLC, KPI, then sort of more services, professional services, that would be the consulting companies, lawyers, accountants. So I work across the board, but I think importantly, and even for this conversation, because I know a lot of the people listening here are not big corporate, the stuff that I can sort of share some things that I'm seeing out there and what's working, it's the same stuff. And so whether you're running a business of 3 people or 30,000, of course, the nuances are different, but how do you get the best out of people is kind of the same. And if you need to set a strategy, well, whether it's a really large organization or a small one, it's not dissimilar. So why do I work big business? To be honest, because they pay. So they pay.
Yeah.
There's an old saying I heard years ago, and someone said, Linton, follow the money. So, hey, I want to get paid for this. Who has budgets? Who pays for people like me? Big businesses. Sometimes I work with small companies. There might be a family-owned little boutique finance organization or some manufacturing that's pretty small, but they got some cash. Cool. I'll go where the work is. So I often find that's why I don't do a lot with small business, even though, to be honest, like I run a small business. I love the small business side. It's just, they're not paying for people like me usually. That's what day-to-day looks like now. I'm based in the Gold Coast. Have been here a few
Is the
years.
Gold Coast God's country? Is it?
Well, it's funny, and actually, Cam and myself just realised in the lead up to this, mate, we are about a stone's throw from each other right now. So, I think about probably 500 meters away. So, yeah, we're going to sort of either awkwardly avoid each other in the future, or we're going to hang out.
Or embrace.
Yeah, we're going to embrace. So, yeah, I was a little unsure about the Goldie when I first moved here. My wife's family's up here, and I'm hooked now. I mean, yeah, I'm a
Nice. So
Goldie.
Kiwi, obviously, if you didn't recognize the background voice. So just obviously you want to go back to how you sort of came into business and hear about some of your first clients and that kind of stuff and how that sort of came about. But you mentioned something before, two things I think were pretty profound, which is a classic tradie story. You probably start the business. I'd say 98% of people start the business because they're an absolute weapon on the tools.
Yeah.
No one was like, you know what, I'm so switched on on the back end, I'm going to start the business. Usually it's like, look how good I am with my hands. It's like start that way. And my boss is making all this money off me, and or you got an opportunity, and it's like, I'm going to take it because I'm a weapon. I can produce the product. Where the product is what you produce on site when you're working for someone else. But the product as a business owner is everything from the initial phone call to the Google review or the callback, and everything in between. So, and you're dealing with people, which are clients and staff, and yourself, you are a person too. So I think that's a classic. It's a tale as old as time. I'm really good and I'm going to start, when starting sort of is a lot more involved in that. And also, so I think people relate to that, whether they're just starting their business or just started and they're sort of running the show. But also promotion from within is incredibly common in electrical, solar, aircon companies. You might have the weapon project manager, the weapon, installer or whatever you want to call it, rough-in lord. And all of a sudden it's like, I need someone to help out, quote, in the office. So now you've done the same thing that you did. You got a weapon on the tools, now you're promoting them to the office, which might be a great fit. It also might not be a great fit, but you go to leading people. So that's huge. So wherever you're sitting here, this will be so relevant to you because you're dealing with people all the time. Another thing I just want to touch, I want to hear you expand on this, follow the money, because I feel that, I feel like your business is screaming data to you. And especially like in the trade world, you're moving so many hours through you. And I think one of the large dangers is because you get a 50 grand payment and maybe 30 grand of that's materials or something. So you can feel rich. If you're listening back to this on audio, I'm like rich, like Dr. Evil laser, using this rich. You can feel rich because so much money is coming through your account, and you can so often belittle 300, 500,000, 2,000, 5,000, and that's real money. So, your business is screaming at you data. What's it screaming at you? And I think getting to that devil in the detail of like, what's the profitable work? Or if I've got a great client that's not profitable, can I make it profitable? And then from there, maybe yes, great, continue on, green light, go. Maybe red, no, let's move on to the next person. But follow the money, like expand on that in that for us. Like obviously
Yeah.
you went full corpo, although
Yeah.
there is a button undone on your shirt, which is kind of the relaxed corporate.
Yeah, I sometimes wondered, like, should I be, yeah, I'd have
I was
two buttons
hoping for
down.
more buttons undone, to be honest.
Yeah, as we go, if you loosen me up a little bit, I'll,
Yeah, we'll
yeah,
see that.
It's Gold Coast corporate.
yeah,
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
yeah, go Linton.
Crowe's Northern Rivers corporate.
yeah,
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 yeah, he
yeah.
is. Yeah,
I got
No
like
shoes.
yeah,
$1,000
he's just had a
pants on.
haircut, actually.
Yeah.
Um,
It's funny though because I feel that you know, knowing you as a person, you've got such a depth of character and such a great understanding of people, and I reckon, and you've been host of an MC of I don't even know how many weddings. I think you are.
of our friends. Yeah,
Yeah, yeah.
I did the
Of
MC thing for a while.
But you're always that person that's upfront speaking, and I think anyone is lucky to hear from you, and especially if someone's got you on their side in a meeting or on their side to sort of, you know, in that leadership sense. I mean, I like that's a lucky person in my head. So talk to us about following the money. What does it mean, and what encouragement would you have to someone who was sort of like,
Yeah, so no, man. Look, firstly, thanks for the kind words too, mate. It's yeah, appreciate the genuine compliment. And yeah, it's an interesting thing with follow the money. Like the point is, when we're not in this for charity, the intent is to, hey, let's make as much as we can without selling our souls, right? Or working too hard that actually the very reason we're doing this is being impacted. So I want to, of the time that I have to put into this, how do I make the most of that time? You know, and I don't want to become a mercenary, but I feel greater value when I'm charging more, and I feel like people take on my advice more when I'm charging more. So often we don't know. It's like you're going to make a purchase and you actually don't really know, and it's like, well, how much is it? I don't know. Like I need a pair of scissors, and I'm looking in at Woolies, and that's $6, and those are 15. I'll buy the $15 ones because they're probably better. Now, I have no idea what actually, but sometimes the value we place on things is associated with the price it costs. So there is something around the goal being, okay, I want to make the most I possibly can of the hours I have without taking the piss or without losing work. So it's funny with my line of work where you could have the best strategy. I might say, all right, I'm going into government. I'm going to find lots of government work, and I'm going to be really deliberate and targeted with government work because that's going to be where I've got some government work already, and I think I'm going to get more of it. So I can have the best plan, but I may find then all of a sudden that's where I think there's an opportunity, and then I just get pulled into something totally different, but there's an opportunity there and I've just got to chase it, right? So there's kind of that tension of, do I have a plan and just be really disciplined to structure? No, I said I was going to do government work, so I'm going to say no to those other things. Or, no, actually there's something over there, which I hadn't really planned, but you know what? It's there right now as an opportunity. I'm going to take it. So that's always a tension, right? Of I'm going to try to do this, and yet something comes along, and you just got to go with it. So I think it's something to consider. When's the right time to say no? When's the right time to say yes? And then further to that, it's like, what's the right way to make sure I'm perceived to have? How do I show my value so that I can increase and get the most out of every opportunity? So how do I talk about what I offer? How do I elevate the perception of my services? How do I be perceived as someone that can charge at a certain rate? So yeah, I think it's something that I wrestle with a bit. Here's one little interesting thing. I was taught this a few years ago. As soon as you anchor low, it's really hard to go up. But if you're seen at a certain level, you can always drop down. So I'm really careful about discount, because as soon as I'm seeing it being that sort of price, but that's the kind of services you provide. So I'm really structured there. Like it might even be, I might have nothing on a week, and I usually work with this client on this, and by nature of the sort of work I do, the rates are relatively high, and some might say, we'll give you this much to come in and do a couple of days work, and that money, man, I'm not doing anything. Let's say I've literally got 3 days, and that's just going to be cash in my pocket. But on principle, I would often say no, because if you find out, because I do other work with your organization, if they find out that I'm doing this, I've just shot myself in the foot. Or if I get known in the market as being someone who takes those sort of rates, it's a risk for me. So I'm really conscious. If I'm doing it, I'm really deliberate. Okay, here's why I would take this, and it's a one-off or something, but I'm really careful of not discounting or not Just does that make sense? I appreciate I'm maybe not answering that
No,
really clearly, but you got to be so protective of how you're perceived. And for me, I want to be seen as being at the pointy end. So at the pointy end, you don't just discount arbitrarily. You don't say, oh yeah, I'll do this for that much because my pipeline's a little bit light. No, hell no. In fact, I've got to make sure I'm sort of seen as being at a certain level. So that's something I think about a lot from a finance perspective.
so on that, Linton, right? I mean, I'm going to touch on two things. You mentioned pivoting. So back when I want to start your journey after we go through this and work out, because everyone, pretty much every Sparky is on a one-way ticket to. You hope you're on a one-way ticket to large jobs that are highly profitable. So you've got the money there, and then you've got the consistent workload. And once those two match up, you're selling labor and materials at a profit consistently, which is like the goal of life.
Yeah.
And generally, the bigger the client, a lot of times, the bigger the client in that sort of school, commercial land, usually sort of the better the work is, the easier the retention of staff is because everyone's sort of happy and they're not breaking any land speed records. So there's huge to go to. But so I want to talk about pivoting in a second, but give us, so generally speaking, Sparky's Australia-wide, usually there's a bit of a rate, your break-even rate can be sort of 75 to 125 and everywhere in between. So someone's 110 is extremely profitable per hour, and someone's 110 is, hey, I'm losing money. So wherever you sit on that radar, first and foremost, is important to know. But discounting, the most common thing is oh, can I get that a bit cheaper? We'll leave out the sea monster, the can I pay cash, because that's not a conversation for this day. And this day and age. But so what do you say? If someone's, how much of that discounted can I get it discounted? How much is in the know your worth, hold your values? And then it's well, hang on, I'm looking at a blank schedule, a blank space, Taylor Swift style. How do you negotiate, hold firm? When do you know when to drop? I've heard that one of the best objections I heard, I think it was can you do it for cheaper? And they said, I can do it for more. And I was I actually like that. But do you have to know how to handle objections, or you just hold your ground, or what do you do?
I think no perfect answer there. I think it's case by case, right? So there's a really common thing in professional services, and it's the same for you guys. You think, I've got team here. If you've got a couple of, you're not working with subbies, but you've got body, people that you're carrying, you think, I need to have them utilized. I imagine there's an element of that, right? So sometimes I've actually just got to take something, even if it's low margin work, just to keep things moving. So I think there's a time and a place for that. And God, it's not my place to tell someone not to take that work. I think we've got to be pretty mindful of, if we just accept a discount, the question they might ask is, well, why was it the original price anyway? So they say, oh, could you knock X amount off that? Yeah, no worries, we can do that. Well, so hang on, you just made that figure up of why it was in the one in the first place. So no, I've charged this for a reason, and there's a good reason for it. So normally the approach I would do, and I don't know how this works in your world, but if we want to decrease the price, we decrease the scope. So that's one. This is not arbitrary. So, okay, if you want to do it for less than that, we can do that, but the services will be slightly less. So that's obvious, because now I'm associating my effort with the time and I put in. So that's one. Yeah, very happy to do that. Let's look at some ways that we can cut that down and still get you the outcome you want. So then it doesn't feel like I'm this sort of making this number up, but it's associated. And generally, the thing that we need to understand here is when they're asking about, when they're challenging price, what are they really asking? And the skill here is to find out what's the real question. What's the real question? So usually our default response when we get challenged, and it could be a challenge on price, it could be a challenge on quality of work, it could just objections, is to react, right? Or respond. So they say, well, can you talk me through the price? Oh, well, actually, the price is very reasonable, and actually I'm benchmarked against others, and I know, lots of other people are happy with my price, and we sort of start defending. Don't defend, right? So as soon as you start defending, you've lost a bit of control. So what you want to do there is be curious. So acknowledge the question, then understand where it's coming from, and then maybe you can respond. So, look, yeah. So they might say, so could you talk me through your price? It's a lot more than I would have expected. So someone who is a bit nervous, we're not used to it, we'll just respond, oh, well, actually. So I think someone who's in control, gee, that's a bit more than we expected. What can you do for us on price? Valid question. Valid question. If you don't mind me asking, what were you expecting? So, by the way, there's a little tip. The person who asks the questions controls the conversation. So you've got a customer or client who's like asking you questions. What about this? What about this? They're in control. You ask them questions, you regain control. So why is the price? What can you do for me? Well, yeah, look, valid question to ask, and of course, pricing's a really relevant issue. Could you talk me through your expectations, or what were you hoping to achieve, or what? So take it back, and the question they may be asking, not always, they might say, well, look, my budget is 10K. That's it. It's all I have. Okay, so you might then say, okay, well, look, to be honest, I'm not going to be able to do it for 10. So we've got a couple of options here. I decrease what I'm doing, you increase, or perhaps I can steer you in a different direction. So that's one, is just to disqualify. You don't want to be chasing rats in my stuff. So that's one. And the other is we find it maybe it's actually not the price. It's the question is, are you worth it? Right? So the question is not, is this, why is it expensive? The question, are you someone I can trust that's actually going to deliver? And so sometimes identifying where's the value. So what's it worth to you if you get this right? What's it worth to you if you get this wrong? So there's different ways of unpacking that, but don't just respond. Acknowledge the question, go back with a question of your own to find out what is actually going on here. Why are you asking this? What's actually important? And they might say, oh, well, I've had another quote that's come in and they're a whole lot cheaper than you. Oh, okay. So, if you don't mind me asking, was it the same? So you might then realize, oh, we're not comparing apples with apples here. Or that actually it's just a cheaper quote, it's 15% less than yours. Hey, to be honest, if I was in your shoes, I'd go with them too. And that's not the kind of work I do. So, I'm sort of this kind of work, if that's the kind you want, hey, feel free to go with them. But hey, all the best, reach out if I can help, So I think there's nothing wrong with that, if that makes sense. But there's a piece there around control. And the little thing, and I appreciate I'm giving you a long answer to this, but whether it's about money or dealing with challenging conversations, I've only just been reflecting on this a bit recently. I was talking to a tech company yesterday about this concept. It's a bit of an intense concept, but predator versus prey. Predator versus prey. So what is a prey? Think a little mouse. What's the behavior and attitude, and like they're manic, they're nervous, they're always looking around. It's kind of high energy, but like in a frantic way. They're just always on edge. What's predator? Relaxed, at ease, comfortable, in control. There's moments of like high intensity, but they're at ease. And we're still mammals, right? We get a read on someone. So they ask you a question about price, or about something you've done, whatever it is. And if we start acting like prey, and we're stuttering, and when we get nervous, our speech, our voice goes higher. We start speaking really quickly. It's like you've just undermined your strength. Whereas you're like, hey, I'm at ease here. I'm comfortable. Yeah, I get these questions all the time. No worries. And it's like, oh, okay, the way that person's handling that demonstrates a certain approach. And actually, yeah, I'm buying your confidence. So I don't know. There's something in there around how we respond to those challenges and those questions that shows we're worth it. It's like, I'm worth this much is different to, hey, here's my price, but I'm going to get you a really good outcome.
I love that. The predator versus prey. It sounds intense.
It does sound intense. Yeah. My encouragement to all your audience is to be predators. That'd be great.
Fidget like cutting that snip out for our social.
Yeah, if you could use that, yes, yeah.
We need some context around that.
Yeah, be a predator. Be a predator in the workplace.
Yeah. Just a photo of you on a billboard. No, so but I love that sort of relaxed, calm, know what you want, know your worth, know your value. That's solid as. And I love what you said about curiosity. Because I feel like that is the key. That is one of the biggest keys to leadership, in my opinion. So someone's late, and it's like we're not just like we're trying to work out a rhyme and a reason, or there's a certain behavior that's repeating itself. And this isn't just professionally; this is personally as well. Like your child is behaving in a certain way. Not my kids, angels, absolutely. Perfect family. So funny. Well, probably there's going to be some screaming in a second. They're not home. But it's so funny, man, when they're chasing each other around with like, we've got lightsabers at the moment and they just battle and it gets so intense, but it's so in Star Wars. Curios is so huge to be. How would you encourage someone to begin that journey? Because it's like, you know, the general nature, and you can refer this to sporting teams, is someone's attacking, someone's defending. So if I feel attacked, I'm either going to counterattack or I'm going to defend myself. So I'm going to go, well, you know, you just what you wanted, that scope of work. So that's what you said it on the phone. You said that at the point.
Yeah.
Or you get like Happy Gilmore style. I'm sorry, baby, I didn't mean that. Like you can have that scope of works, right? So, but how would you encourage someone who's super counterattacky or super, I'd say, insecure, and we're all on a journey to security, right?
Yeah.
Like, how would you encourage someone to start being curious?
The curiosity, I think, is just such a game changer, and not just from a leadership perspective or getting the best out of people and understanding people dynamics, but even from selling. If you want to sell, if you're not curious, you will never win as much work as someone who has your same skill set who is curious. And let me give you an example or talk through how this plays out. So often we go in, we think, hey, and they say, also tell me about what you do, or tell me what you could offer here, or how would you approach this? And we say, yeah, here's what I do. And I already know what I do. I've seen this before. I know exactly what you need. And so I just tell you what I do. And then they're like, yeah, cool, leave it with me. I'll come back to you. Something like that, right? And so what is so much more effective is like, I want to find out what actually matters to you and why. And so that's a curiosity thing. How much of this? So hey, so before of course I can quote on this. And by the way, excuse my, if I've got ignorance around the nuances, just bear with me, okay? Because but so there's like, I'm going to ask a few like questions, not just technical questions, but I want to ask questions to understand where's your head at and what's actually going to inform your decision. So hey, so what's important to you with this? And so by finding out, okay, time matters more than cost. Or actually, I just want this done incredibly well. So it's about quality as opposed to it is about time. What really matters to me is just the people that we have in the house, because my partner's really fussy and has had some bad experiences in the past. You actually just explore a little bit, and just even 10 minutes of a curious conversation where you ask questions and you're interested. You then think when you're going back, you're able to like trust to a large extent comes from feeling, oh, this person speaks my language. And if you've never actually asked the questions or found out what matters to them, it's really hard to then match your solution to their problem. Because it's like, well, you have a technical problem here where you need this thing done, but I don't know what the decision criteria you're using to decide who's going to do it. And so sometimes we're thinking, oh, it's probably a price thing. And so you're coming and thinking, oh, what's the lowest price I can do? And they would say, if you actually ask the question, to be honest, price is not a big thing. I honestly don't care. Price is so far from my radar right now. What really matters to me is about having a good relationship with the people I'm doing it with, and just feeling at ease with the guys I have on site. Okay. Now, I don't know how often that's reality, but it could be easily. Or someone else says, no, to be honest, it's just speed. I just want to get this done. And so it's not about, so we can often assume we know. And so we're then trying to, in that you might have lost 20% of your margin on that job because you think it's a pricing. It's not a pricing at all. You miss it because you've taken down this angle, and in reality, if you figure out, oh, that's actually what they want, then you're able to put your value proposition or to pitch your work in a way that's hitting their needs. So if you're not curious, it's really hard to differentiate, because it becomes commoditized, right? So if I don't understand the difference, I become commoditized. If I'm commoditized, guess what's happened to things that are commoditized? It's lowest wins. But if I can understand value, and how do I understand value? I understand what you value. This is not one size fits all. I understand your unique needs and requirements and circumstances. Then I position what I do to solve the problem you have. Now I'm selling on value as opposed to selling on price. All of a sudden, I'm making some headway. So that all depends on curiosity. How do you be curious? It sounds so simple, but just be genuine. Like, are you actually interested? Someone said something, we're like, yeah, thanks. Ask follow-up questions. Like, I actually want to understand why. And if you've got that mindset, Even, he doesn't have to ask the perfect questions. I'm just interested. Oh, so tell me more about that. When you said that, what did you mean? So you mentioned this and this. Could I just ask which of those is more important to you? Okay. And you said you had a Sparky in here on your previous project, but you get a bit frustrated with them. And often they might say, "Oh, I had a bad experience with my last Sparky." Yeah, no worries, no worries. Well, we'll be better than them. So be curious. So, hey, if you don't mind me asking, what was the problem? Like when you say you had a bad experience, what was the problem? Oh, they did this and this. Ah, so that was pretty frustrating, was it? Yeah, it was so frustrating. So it'd be pretty important whoever comes in next was a bit different to that. Oh, that's critical. Okay. Yeah, no worries. Good to know. And one of the other things you mentioned was this. How do you see that? So I'm just collecting data. And so now when I'm putting in my proposal, my quote, they're like, and I'm talking to them, they're like, hey, this guy really gets me because I've asked the questions. Does that make sense? That's a really simple idea, but
so
we
much
want to
sense.
move away from being commoditized. If you're playing the commoditized game, you got cheap rates.
And I love the curiosity, and then and I want to touch on that because I feel I guess like we're all in sales, right? If you're running a business, essentially you're selling something, you're selling a product, right? If you're selling labor and materials, you're in sales. It doesn't have to look like the real estate agent from The Simpsons. Lionel Hutz. This is so good.
I just, all your references, like, oh yeah, I've watched Happy Gilmore, but once 15 years ago. This is so, but I love it, mate. It's good.
It's Elodie keeps telling me to drop the references, and I'm like, nah, we get the like 1 or 2 comments on it a year, so I'm gonna stay with it. But curiosity, I think I want to talk about when curiosity hits confidence. So curiosity of like, yeah, tell me what you would like here, and I want to talk about the point because I feel like my in sales, it was like, oh, if it was my house, I would do this. So you're in somewhere, you're always reading the human, no matter what you're doing, reading the human, and you're solving a problem. Whether that's they want to download over the kitchen bench or a sensor on their front light or whatever, you're solving a problem. Essentially, the more problems you solve or the bigger problems you solve, the more money you make. And let's come back on that a little bit. Probably the more problems you solve for a better client base, the more money you make. So you can solve less problems for a great client base and make some awesome money. So, but there's a point where you got to be curious, and then you've got to be the expert. So you've got to be like, okay, sweet. Well, I hear what you're saying. At my house, here's the job we just did. Here's a photo of this LED strip under here, this at that point. Have you seen these downlights? And I would encourage everyone to be curious and then be confident in terms of this is the pathway to go down. You don't want to be curious to the point of, so what light did you want across that bench?
Yeah,
like,
love
no,
that.
here's the 4 light. Here's your options, right? I've seen this. Did you want a dimmer on that? I think when you can combine those two, talk to us about the importance of confidence in your product and like sort of how to best articulate that to the client.
So you're exactly right, Greg. There's a curiosity to understand what they need. And then once you've found out what their needs are and their problems are, there's a confidence to demonstrate you can solve them. So some people have confidence without the curiosity. I just reflecting on going in, whether a mate was looking at buying a new car and he wanted to go into the Range Rover dealership. I remember going with him and he's
it's classic Gold Coast activity.
Well, actually, this was in Sydney. So this is in Sydney.
Clarify.
Just to clarify, but eastern suburbs guy. That's right. You can't drive a Range Rover in Byron, can you? That Bangalore. That would be a travesty.
I got a 60 series cruiser. You have
I've seen it. No aircon.
Upon entry, you just have to buy one. It's compulsory.
So
the rustier, the better.
That's right. So, and I remember going into this Land Cruiser dealership, and my mate, he's sort of Singaporean background, but been in Australia 20 years. He will never leave the eastern suburbs in that car, right? It's going within a 5K rate. We'll go to the CBD and back to Bronte, right? And we go in there and he said, "Hey, I'm just looking at this Range Rover Sport. Do you tell me?" And the guy's like, "Mate, this is a great car. We can lift it up. We've got roof racks on there. You'll be able to, you can put your bikes on there. You can put your skis on there. Look at the boot space for your camping gear. We can," and he's just so confident about all the stuff that is completely irrelevant. Like completely irrelevant. And so you can end up being confident about the wrong thing and saying a lot of stuff. It's like value per minute. How many words are you saying that are valuable? So how do you make sure that when you go to be confident about a solution, it's actually mapping to the problems they have? The thing I often think here is you must diagnose before you prescribe if you're a doctor. Doctors diagnose and then they prescribe. So, and if you don't do it, if you prescribe before diagnosis, that's malpractice. So what does that mean? They ask you questions. What are your symptoms? What's your problems? Okay, great. Well, if that's the case, here's what you need. Go do that. Oh, okay. Thanks, doc. It's like going in for a haircut. They don't ask you questions. They just start cutting. What are you doing? You ask me what I need and then you start cutting, right? So it's funny how often in selling, we're trying to win and we think by talking more, we increase the likelihood of success. Wrong. You ask questions until you understand. And then before you go into talking about your approach, you make sure you summarize back. This is the little technique I was taught. Ask questions, then summarize. So it sounds like this is really important to you. Cam, can I just play this back to you to make sure I got it right? This, and this is really important. And if you say yes, guess what? I've now earned the right to make recommendations. If you say no, okay, what am I missing? So, yep, that's right. Okay. So here's what I'd suggest. In fact, I'm seeing a lot of this at the moment. I wonder if you'd be interested in that. Or in my work with a lot of this kind of project, we're seeing this. So now you're becoming an expert, but it's tailored to what they need. And the nice thing is you're then 2 weeks later having the conversation. Hey, last time we spoke, Greg, you mentioned this was really important. Just want to clarify. Am I right with that? Yeah, that's right. Okay. So if that's what you want, can I make a recommendation? So now I'm mapping what I'm suggesting to what they're stating, as opposed to just pulling stuff out of nowhere because I think it might land. So you want to add value, you want to get things over the line, you map your solutions or your recommendations to things that they've said that they need.
Yeah.
If not, it just feels like I'm throwing mud at the wall and seeing what sticks. And that's low value.
Well, I'm just picturing someone like I remember when I first started the business, I'd walk into someone's house, like, yeah, we'll do this, and this, and that. And I love what you said about the person who asks the questions, controls the conversation. And not that you want to control it you want to control it in a nice way.
It's not about power.
It has to work for both parties. And that's business in a nutshell, right? There's no point business just working really good for you and not for your staff or clients. Everyone has to sort of win. I love that old proverb that says, even a wise person seems smart when they keep their mouth. Sorry, even a fool seems smart when they keep their mouth shut.
Yeah.
Love that. Like talk less if you possibly can. Ironically, we all talk for a living, which is funny. But asking the right questions. I love that confidence. But coming into it, I know when I first sort of started, I was, we'll do that, and that. And then and the guy's like, or girl's like, and then you get to a point where you find out their budget's $3,000 to $4,000, and you've just like spec'd out 20K of scope with these like $1,000 lights, and it's like, well, that was probably the wrong. Yeah. And they said, can you discount? And I said, of course I can discount. Yes. But I love that when the confidence meets it. All right, back to sort of, or anyone got anything to add on that before I go back to the sort of pivoting stuff?
No, probably anything I thought like around the curiosity part, like, so you've got the questions, you've asked them, you demonstrated your expertise. It's the opportunity or the client that you're looking for in, hey, this is ideal for me. What happens when then, because you did touch on the price side of things. So what happens if you've demonstrated all the curiosity, expertise, delivered that really well? It's the opportunity that you're actually after, but then it comes back in a way from the potential client that the price isn't where it needs to be, and there's a disconnect in that conversation. I guess it's sort of almost like an objection handling consensus, but more so around that. I think a lot of people go, oh, but this is a really good opportunity.
Yes.
I'll offer a discount, or we can change the scope or something like that. Because I guess two ways I look at it. One way is this is an opportunity potentially to open doors to long term, and the other way is like, oh no, I'm standing my ground, and standing my principles, like sort of a flag in the ground, sort of bang, hey, this is it. Where can you go in those sorts of scenarios, Linton? or in that area?
Yeah, I think this is you can get overconfident too. I've had a few of these where I had one last year, a big client of mine I've worked with for years, and I knew it was, they loved the work, working really well. I was doing all their leadership development for a very large organization. They then said, hey, we need it's a government organization. We need to sort of go back to, we have to just do a procurement thing just to make sure, we just have to do this every couple of years. And I was like, oh, good opportunity to raise my rates. I haven't had a rate rise with these guys in a couple of years. Yeah, actually, and they're not even paying my travel. Like I was in Sydney, I was like, well, I'm going to, at a minimum, every client pays my travel. If these guys weren't for some reason, well, I'm going to add my travel back in. I'm going to increase my rates. And I was like, yeah, I'm the incumbent. I'm rock solid here. I'm absolutely getting this. I was no problems at all. Of course I'm going to get this. And they came back to me through procurement because I knew good relationships. They said, oh, you are a bit higher than everyone else. And I was like, yeah, because I'm better. You know what I mean? No, I was a little bit cocky, but I was like, yeah, but I'm better. Like, fine, I may be higher. I'm okay with being, because I'll often say this to clients. Hey, I will be more expensive. Can I say up front, before we get into this, before I quote, just so you know, I am going to be more expensive. So is that okay? Is that going to be okay? So I'm really upfront. I kind of lean into that. Like, yeah, I'm a premium offering basically. And sorry, I don't want to sound like a wanker there, but I'm just trying to, I've just positioned myself in a certain
No,
so I
it's
lean into that. And
have to. It's so important. Not it's like in a know your worth way, but it's like, so I always picture hourly rate work for electrical, right?
yes,
So if I'm $200 an hour and Johnny's 100, but I'm twice as good,
yeah,
we're the same rate.
yeah,
So he'll do it. He's in $600 in 2 days, and I'll do it 1,600 in 1 day. And it's like, people don't ask those questions enough. So it's like
yeah,
they compare an hourly rate. I'm like, well, let's compare rate with outcome. It's
yeah.
not just the
Agreed.
rate. It's the rate comes with the reputation, comes with the experience, comes with the wisdom, comes with the people skills, comes with the outcome.
Yeah,
So
yeah,
how quick is Johnny? We had my old boss on the podcast last 2 weeks ago, whatever, and he was like, he had that exact same thing. Someone to be like, you're 20% more expensive. He's like, we're 20% better.
yeah.
And
That
when you're
confidence
measuring,
there. Yeah,
and it's not like you can call it. It's not arrogance. It's confidence. It's like no professional sports person is going on the field trying to lose. They're
yeah,
going like, no,
yeah,
how can I win? And it's not
yeah,
it's going to be blurred lines sometimes between arrogance and confidence, but you've got to believe, but you've got to back it up. You
yeah,
can't just be like, I'm 20% better and then
yeah,
just be late and not answer the phone and,
yeah.
kind of stuff. But I
That's
did
right.
interrupt you before.
No, mate. I completely agree. So, but that one, it turned out I ended up losing the work, and I only found out afterwards. They said not only could you not, like, you couldn't have even kept the rate you were on. We would have needed you to come down like 20-30% from your old rate because we had a big budget cut, and it's like, oh, and so you kind of like, oh man, I just lost like a lot of work. What's going on? But that is what I've discounted. No, like on principle, I wouldn't. I'm just going to have to let that one slide. So I think if it's a really good opportunity to take it, hey, there's a new market, there's a new thing. Okay, I'm seeing this as an investment, so I'm going to go into it deliberately, but I'm not just doing it because I'm influenced by whatever you say. I'm deliberately making a decision to do that. And sometimes you might say, let's say, can you do this? You say, look, I can't do that, but what I can do is. So while I can't discount, what I can do is add this, or I can add that, or I can. So there can be ways of reframing it. Like, or you might say, yeah, I know it can look more expensive, but what I'd encourage you to do is consider it like this. So this is the concept of framing. Frames are what we look through. The essence of framing is saying, don't look at it like that, look at it like this. Well, that's very expensive. Well, you could look at it like that. What I'd encourage you to do is look at it like this. And if you have good reasons for that, and you have conviction, like you're saying it with confidence and conviction, people will often believe your frame, and it should be legit. But maybe it's saying, hey, what are the risks if you get this wrong? However you want to focus on that, I just think always everyone's going to try the discount. I would do it too, but you don't always have to let that slide. And if you have to let some things go, then hey, that's the nature of the game. So I don't know how well I've answered that.
I learned that because coming from a family where my dad would just pay whatever the tradie said. He was never the person. I was never from a family that went, oh, hey, could you perhaps do it at a discount? Hey, can we upgrade to business class? Like, that was not my dad. He was like, get the bill, pay the bill. But a lot of people, different cultures especially, come from different backgrounds where normal to them is, oh, can you do that cheaper? And, or maybe it's part of their job role, especially a contracts admin who basically their job is to, find the cheapest price, basically, a lot of the times. Not all the time, but find the best value for scope and different pieces like that. Their job,
Value.
better
Yeah.
value, laser. So but it's normal in a lot of parts of the world to ask a question. So I just felt like people are entitled to ask a question, but you're entitled to respond without being a tool as well.
Totally.
Sometimes it's like, well, we're the best product in the
Yeah.
Southern Hemisphere, and
Yeah.
I think it's
That's the curiosity, right? That's that
100%.
piece back. What, if you don't mind me asking, valid question, why do you ask? Or what were you expecting? And that's so, and sorry, mate, I've just cut you off, but isn't it different? It's saying, I don't know, it just seems more than I thought. That's very different from, oh, well, I've got 3 other quotes and you're by far the most expensive. Or the third might be, well, I've only got a budget of this much. I see. And by understanding that, then you can respond.
Yeah, it's like someone wanting to, feed their family for a certain amount of money and it's outside their scope. Like they're entitled to ask a question, you're entitled to respond. And I think that's when curiosity meets confidence. So if you're curious, oh, tell me about that, but you're confident in especially in the trade world, if you're confident in your numbers and someone says something that's a number that you can't get to, it's a no bueno.
Yeah.
Is that how you say that? No bueno.
Yeah, no bueno. Yeah, that's
What
they call it in
What does that mean again?
no bueno. Oh, to be honest, I'm not in a position to answer, but you throw that into Google.
I'm saying like it's a no deal, but
Yeah, no, yeah, that's probably what it means.
Which is different.
Not
There is-
good. Not
Not
good.
good.
in
Okay, perfect.
in negotiation theory, like with practice negotiators, there's a thing called ZOPA, which is the zone of possible agreement, and it's like, is your highest and my lowest? Is there a zone of possible agreement? And sometimes you realize actually, there's a gap. There's no zone of possible agreement, so I need to disqualify this quickly. Otherwise, I'm chasing parked cars. I've got to just let this go. And as you realize, okay, I think there is a ZOPA. And so with that in mind, okay, let's try and make this work, and we can actually be really happy with it. And sometimes you realize, hey, I'm going to do an initial, let's start this, and I'm going to do a little bit discounted. If you're happy with that, then I'm going to go up to full rates in 2 months or whatever. So you're going to even look at little ways like that. But like I'll give you an example. My old man is he's a tradie. He's a fabricator, does metalwork. He lives in New Zealand, in Queenstown, and he's run his own business for a long time. He's very skilled with his hands at like doing. He would do kind of some, building custom fireplaces and balustrades and wine racks and chandeliers, and it's quite cool stuff. And he's become quite specialized with the skill set. And he still thinks of himself as a tradesman as opposed to an artist. And it's a funny difference because he's actually kind of an artist. And I say, Dad, like, don't think of it as your hourly rate. You've got to think. Now, I know that's different because he doesn't really have competitors the same way, but it's been a real challenge for him to move away from, okay, he's like, well, I'll quote it what I think it would take a normal person, and then I'll do it really, really quick. And that'll be the way I can make extra margin because he's fast. And then I'll charge the markup on the steel. It's like, yeah, Dad, I get that, but like the clients, and he's based in Queenstown, there's a lot of very wealthy clients there. They love the thought of paying, and he'll go into their houses and it's like, oh, we've spent $50,000 on that rug, and that thing that thing there is worth $180,000 for that sort of that little statue. And they're saying we'd like a custom, stainless steel fireplace, and he's like, oh, good, that'll be 15 grand, and I'm like, Dad, and of course that's a lot of effort and time in that. I'm like, Dad, just say 30, see what you can get away with. And so he's slowly been, even recently, he's like, I'm just going to try. So he's just like, just throwing a number out there, and they're like, yeah, no worries. And so it is funny. And I've experienced this a bit. I said, what can I get away with? And I'm not saying that because I think I'm robbing someone, but value is what someone places on it. So, okay, I actually think I can go in with a high number here, and I think I'm deserving to do that. And sometimes what I've found, the difference is you talk to someone and you realize, oh, wow, that's what they're charging? Gosh, they're in a different league to me. That's really good for you to hear. Like you hear someone who's like, you got to do what I do, but you're charging that sort of rate? Oh my gosh, like I need to rethink my game a bit. That's really useful to hear those stories where you find out someone's doing this and you're like, oh man. Or conversely, I was chatting with someone this week and they told me their rates and she said, oh, and I said, because we're going in a joint venture on a piece of work. And I said, oh, out of your interest, what are your rates? We're going to need to align. And she said, oh, we're pretty expensive, and told me the rates. I was like, oh. And I thought to myself, I'm at least twice that. So it's funny because in her mind, it's really expensive. So and I haven't told her mine, but I'll say to her, hey, by the way, I'm meeting with her and a business partner tomorrow, and I'll share them mine, and they'll probably say, oh, maybe we need to up our rates. That'll be their response. And conversely, I do the same. I heard one a couple of weeks ago with what someone's charging. I was like, oh my God, what am I doing with my life? Like, that's serious cash. So I don't know. I think hearing what other people are doing kind of can provide a bit of what do I need to do to get there?
That's
I know
so
we talk all about monies, but anyway, it's relevant.
no, and especially in your space when it's the outcome is somewhat intangible.
Yeah.
Like the outcome of a good leadership session, that might boost morale for 12 months. Someone might carry 2 or 3 of those principles with them for life. That someone's going to walk out of this podcast and take away 2 or 3 items, and that will actually define your conversation for the next 10 years. So especially that curiosity. So how would you actually put a value on that? And I think the importance of I think like for me, it's even the net profit discussion, the smaller the job, the difference between 30 or 40% net profit might be 1,500 to 1,620. So if someone's going to pay 1,500, they're going to pay 1,620. That's just the nature of sort of that beast. But I think getting in with the right kind of clients, and then we always refer to being on the right side of the barbecue conversation. So it's like if you've taken our ideal client at Sparky Coach, a couple of things. First and foremost, they're motivated. Secondly, they would change Betty's life for free. Betty being a 90-year-old widow.
Yeah, nice.
Like if you can combine, and thirdly, like that they would, well, I guess, commit to doing great things with their life. And I think that's a huge thing. And greatness is such a subjective term. Like if you're just the sickest dad and like a great partner and you've got a good business, whether it's 3 or 30, that's a fantastic lot in life. You look after your own sort of lot in life, but absolutely huge. I love that. Anyway, I want to talk about pivoting. And when people start their business, oftentimes they might think they want to get to I want to get that client, and the need to sort of, sometimes you've got to do what's in your hand to fulfill what's in your heart, so to speak. So the pathway to Everest starts at the base camp. I can't just climb to the summit straight away. There's a journey to go on, and sometimes we make it extremely difficult for ourselves, and sometimes we don't do what's sort of the easiest option, and sometimes the easiest option sucks, and sometimes it is the pathway there. But starting out for you, like, and then where you've got to now, how do you sort of gauge clients and pivot? And is all your stuff word of mouth, or how did you meet people? Do you go and hustle for work, or do you just like let it come to you? Where do you sit in the market?
Yeah, I find I'm now in a position where it's quite word of mouth based, and so I'm quite fortunate in that respect. So I don't really, and one of the things I should do more, and I imagine this is actually a pretty relevant thing for you guys that are listening on this, is even like the social media or in that kind of stuff. I definitely could do more of that, and that's probably a development area for me where I find it a bit awkward, and so I just go with word of mouth, and I've got a good network now where I keep in touch with people. So I'm pretty proactive at reaching out and calls and emails and grabbing coffees and things like that. So that's one, but as far as where to start, like it's interesting that thing that for many of you would have gone, people listening to this, which is actually really similar. For mine, I kind of talked my way into getting a job in this line of work. I learned on someone else's dime. I kind of got experience from them, and I got a lot of feedback and coaching and development. And I got, they don't do it like that. I was around some sharp people, and then got some really useful development. And then it was, okay, I'm going to now become a contractor. And so then I became a contractor. I guess what's that, like sub equivalent. And so then I worked
back to them. You work contracted back to
them, yes, and to others. So it became a little bit of a gun for hire. And that was in Sydney at the time. I then did that. I went to London and then did that across Europe, which was a really good experience. And so I then got lots of just exposure to different ways of doing things. And the nice thing was there was a non-compete. When you leave companies that you work for, in my kind of industry, you can't talk to those clients for 12 months usually. So I was in London anyway. So by the time I came back, I could then go back and talk to those clients. And my intent was not to poach. Like, I'm not trying to be dodgy with it, but hey, I'm going to talk to the people that I know. And so I then they would give me work. Someone else would sell the work and I would deliver it. And then it transitioned into then me delivering the work, and just going direct to clients. And that was a pretty logical progression. But I've found it's having a clear view of where you want to get to, and then just making small decisions on a daily basis that either take you closer to or further from it. And I don't think that needs to be like, I've got a 10-year plan of exactly what it'll look like, but it's like just a bit of a feeling. I want to be a bit more of this and a bit less of that. And so someone sort of knowing, okay, I want to be working on high-end stuff, let's say, or actually that's not the goal at all. I just want to be, I would love to be doing a 4-day week. And so I can be really present with my family, and I want to have lots of flexibility. So I know I need to do this kind of work in this kind of time to make that a reality. So whatever that end state is that you've got a bit of a view on. And again, I don't think it needs to be really, really clear, but I think sometimes the more clear you can make it, the easier it is to make decisions to take you closer to or further from it. So something comes along and it's like, well, would saying yes to that help or hinder? And it's like, well, actually, it's a really clear-cut case. It's saying, I'm going to do it, or I'm going to put myself out there. I'm going to go reach out to that person. You realize, well, I don't really know anyone who's doing that, what I'm doing right now, what I'd like to be doing. So maybe I need to go try and find some people that would do it. Okay, well, who would I talk to? Hey, like Cam, Crow, do you know anyone I should speak to on that? Great. And so then that's, of course, the opportunity like you guys are doing. You're providing a network, but you're then making small decisions on a daily basis that are taking you somewhere. And so I found my experience is case in point of that. I was fortunate to have found a thing that intersects what I like to do and what I'm relatively good at doing that I can be paid for. So I'm fortunate in that sense. And if I was doing my life over again, it's hard to say, well, would it be this? If not this, what would I be doing? I don't know. Probably a sales job or something. And it's kind of, I'm not one of those people I think, I guarantee if I lost everything today, I would be, a squillionaire in 2 years. I've got no idea. Like, I don't know what would happen, but just small incremental decisions that are taking you somewhere, and you've got a bit of a view of that, I think is so critical. So that would be my encouragement. And so then, like, do I need to get a bit uncomfortable? Hey, anyone who's listening to this who started their own business, that was a risk. And you took a risk to do it. And it was probably a bit scary, and there's some unknowns, but now you kind of get into the groove of it. And so it's like, what's the next risk? What's the next thing? Because progress is always on the other side of a bit of discomfort. So nothing in life that you're proud of came easy. What's the moment in your life you're most proud of other than your kids? And no one's going to say, oh, I inherited a lot from my grandma. That's not the moment you're proud of. Hell, it's good, but I'm not proud of that. So what are you proud of? Oh, this was hard. I pushed through it, or I backed myself when no one else would, or I took a risk and tried this and it worked. So I think, taking, continually assessing that and thinking, what's the next risk, or, when's the last time you did something for the first time? That can be a really good thing. And I'm challenging myself with those questions. I could easily get comfortable. Now I've got a good business. And okay, what's the next challenge? What's the next thing that I'm kind of continuing to ask myself without being dissatisfied? Because, hey, life's good. I've got to sort of count my blessings, but also I want to keep growing.
Man, I love that. Now, I want to finish up with the last thing, which I think is probably pretty critical to run a successful business for 10, 20, 30, 40, 50 years. Word of mouth. I think the word of mouth, when you've got the curiosity and the confidence combined with the reputation, when you've got a warm chip in, you're coming in clean. Like, imagine coming into a conversation where someone's like, oh, 10 of my friends or 10 of my companies or 10 of my company's friends of friends have used this person, this company. It's such a different, scale, scope, and it's a different landscape. So you're coming in on reputation, and you can back that with an awesome product. So talk to us about the importance of word of mouth, not just in your business, in anyone's business. Thoughts?
Yeah. My view on word of mouth is the expectation is by default that you're good at doing the thing. So that is not enough. So being a competent electrician is just par for the course. So the expectation is you're good, you'll do a competent job, you'll do the job well. Okay, fine. That is not enough. My view is that the difference is the relationships you build. And so it's how you show up. So we're much more likely to recommend someone we like. We're much more likely, the people we like that we want to work with are the ones that we're going to recommend. So just think through, how do I build the relationships? How do I put the effort in that's going to make this person think, Cameron, just great guy, great to work with. It doesn't mean you're there like talking the air off every time, or you're being, but if you're someone that can build relationship, and you can do the work, then you'll get the referral. So I think don't underestimate how, like, treating this one that's in front of you right now, and you use the thing, what's in your hand, you mentioned before, Chloe, like, okay, I've got this one thing right now. How can I just do such a good job of this? The way I'm going to communicate with this person, I'm going to keep them updated. I'm going to demonstrate competence. I'm going to, based on my understanding of their world, I'm going to make recommendations. I'm going to go the extra mile. I'm going to go above and beyond. And they're like, hey, this person's just excellent. And the way you show up, and you're honest and transparent, and you're engaging. Someone's mentioned it. Hey, I've got a guy. Or I've got a girl. They're just, honestly, really good. I'd highly recommend them. And yeah, it just makes such a difference. So I think thinking through how you can impact how you show up. And I don't know if that means you then have to be, it's like 5 high quality minutes of interaction. It would be much better than 2 hours of shitty interaction. So just when you show up, being really deliberate about it, what's my appearance? How am I going to, I'm going to be fully engaged when I'm having this conversation. I'm going to make sure whatever those things are that you think are going to make a difference. The success or failure on that is much more likely to be based on relationship than anything else. If you think through why, we go back to like we're hunter gatherers. I feel comfortable and safe around you. I get a good energy and a good vibe from you. I feel if things go bad, that I feel a sense of comfort, and like, hey, we're kind of relatedness is often the term. Cool, we're similar people, and I can kind of rely on you. That's a really hardwired instinctive thing in our limbic system. So don't underestimate that. It's not all about the rational, how well you do the job. In fact, they don't even know. They probably don't know if you're good or not. Doctors who spend more time talking to patients get sued less. That's objectively true. So why? They don't know if you're a good doctor or not, because they're not a doctor. So they don't know, but they know this person's nice to me. And so I'm not going to sue them when things go wrong. So they don't know if you're a good Sparky or not in reality, most likely, unless you're objectively crap. So they're like, hey, this person just seems really nice. They put an effort. They make, so they're just going to want to work with you. So I really think that makes sense.
It always, I'd like to do another podcast at one point on working for friends and family, because I know people have like mixed opinions on it. I was always like, let's do it, because I feel like anyone I'm working with, I'm hoping they're going to be friend or family in the future. You know what I mean? Like, we're hoping our largest commercial clients we're going out for dinner with, and we're going to the football with, and like be building relationships of substance and value. And in my head, this is where I go to, a difficult conversation is much easier to have with someone who loves and respects you. So it's like, if you can meet that friend and family criteria with providing an excellent product, they've got to pay someone the money. They might as well pay someone they like the money. Right. They've got to have a difficult conversation with someone. They might as well have it with someone who's reasonable and curious and confident. So I love that sort of like tie-in of that whole thing. So in sort of wrapping up and putting a bow on the pod, what advice would you? What's a closing statement? Do you have something that you're like, if you take away one thing, take away this?
Yeah, maybe I probably won't reintroduce too many more ideas. I think, like maybe just to reiterate that curiosity thing, I think that's just a huge one. If you honestly assess yourself and there's a bit of internal curiosity, how much are you just treating each new opportunity as another one of those? Or am I treating it as a unique client who's got a unique challenge in their mind, and trading with that in mind? I reckon if you do that, and even with your staff, can I fully understand why they're acting the way they are, or where they really want to get to? I'm curious about their goals for the future, and then I'm going to help them achieve them. You're going to get more out of them. When I'm getting objections or challenges, I'm curious to understand why why you're responding like that. If you think of a scale of 1 to 10, anytime someone's responding with more than a 5 of like frustration or anger, there's something more going on. What's going on? I'm curious here. So that kind of, I'm going to be like a scientist, not a lawyer. I'm not trying to convince. I'm just interested. That's just so useful. So I know that to be honest, I'll just reiterate that. I think if you do that, and I know that's a simple idea, but it's actually pretty hard. I think it'll change your life, and in so many ways. Yeah, try that. I don't know how you can keep that front of mind, but yeah, you'll make more money. You'll probably be more satisfied. You build better relationships. How do you build relationships? You got to be curious. There's an old saying that I was taught that the most effective people with building relationships are interested and interesting. And so the same principle, you're saying, oh, okay, well, I just listened to that podcast, and I need to build better relationships. It's probably going to help me, but how do I do that? Be interested and interesting. Okay, how do you be interesting? Well, you listen to what's interesting to them, and then you talk about stuff that's relevant. So, yeah.
Ironically, in the whole thing too, and we were chatting off air beforehand, sometimes your best use of time is going to play golf with your friends and people you do business with. Like that's the building relationships, breaking bread together, having fun together, doing some doughies in a golf cart. It's always a good time.
Yeah, very nice.
Now, I do want to hear on the final wrap up, what's the best golf shot you've ever hit?
Well, I've gone into golf through COVID, but I've never got a hole in one. But I do play golf quite regularly, and probably my best hole, if I think about it, I had a couple of eagles, and which is the sort of 2 under par. But yeah, if I think it was at the Lakes in Sydney. What hole would it be? It's probably hole 7. It's a really nice long par 5, and just beautiful drive, beautiful 3-wood into about 1 foot, tap in eagle. Ugh. How good. How sweet. But to be honest, I played the last couple of weeks and I've been so bad. I'm really demoralized. So I'm just feeling really flat about my golfing right now.
One shot will bring you back. That's all it is.
Yeah, it is. That's all it takes, Kat. Just one.
Yeah. And that's a good life lesson for business too. Sometimes that one phone call just chips you out. But the goal in life is to get an eagle on a par 3. If you didn't know,
on a par 3, that would be a hole in one.
That's a hole in one.
That would be a hole in one.
Yes, exactly. All right. Thank you, Linton, for your time, experience, knowledge, wisdom.
Thanks, Linton.
If anyone wants to reach out, they see they're in a big business or a small one and want to pay Linton's rates, we know he won't discount. We know he's 30% better.
I did a session with you recently, Crowe, and I did discounts. There we go. It just shows it's all.
But it's the manipulation of the relationship. It clouded it. So,
anyway,
so good. Thank you.
Yeah, Linton Chalmers, look me up. I'm there somewhere.
And we'll have your details anyway.
Not on social.
Yeah.
You
might
follow my Instagram.
By the time this releases, you're on social.
Yeah, I'm on LinkedIn, website, whatever else. But awesome team. Yeah, hope that helps. Cool. Pleasure.
Thanks.